Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
Welcome to the podcast shop, boys. What can I do for you? You here to get a You here to get a podcast over there, little fella?
Yeah, I heard you guys got some good ones. Something badass.
What are you looking for, son?
Something made me look tough.
Okay.
You got them podcast bangers here?
We do one shots. We do all kind of little bangers here. I got something perfect for you guys, but first I need you to take a look at my little sign over there. It says Jeffrey D. Kalaski. I'm in the business of rendering a service to this community for the small group of strangers who want their minds decorated in some way or another. I choose to pursue my profession with intelligence and skill, wishing not to offend anyone, but instead, with my love of mankind, do what good I can before I die. Podcaster of the old school since 2023. Sound good? You in?
I'm in.
All right, boys, you're about to get another episode of Talkumentary. What's up, listeners? And welcome to the 21st episode of Talkumentary. My name is Jeff. I am your host. I am hanging out in the Talkumentary, we'll call it a Talkumentary shop today, with a couple very special guests this evening. We're celebrating National Tattoo Day, which falls a few days before this episode airs. Nobody really cares about that, but it was a good excuse to have you guys come hang out with me. These two gentlemen with me are masters of their craft, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people's opinion. You guys, I feel your humbleness coming out already. But I think a lot of people would agree with me. The gold standard of what it is to be a good dude. I appreciate you guys. Listeners, you've met one of them before on episode number 8 when we covered the wonderful documentary called The Sleepless Unrest.
It's my redemption arc here.
Right. This time he's here in the studio in person, which is amazing. A tattooer out of Rhode Island that can put color in the skin, that is bright enough to see from space. And you get real weird with them, which I appreciate. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from, I believe you called it the biggest little state in the union.
Biggest little state in the union.
Mr. Andrew Milko.
Hi, friends.
Hello, Andrew. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me
Of
in
course.
person.
Yeah, always. You are welcome here anytime. And then our second guest, an Omaha local boy with worldwide clout in the realm of tattooing. He tattoos out of 10th Sanctum Tattoo and has a style and a mustache that can't be touched. His tattoos and paintings have swept the globe because of his completely unique, strong yet elegant style.
Thank you.
Bold but detailed designs. A very good guy and one hell of a whistler, I must say. Friends, allow me to introduce you to Mr. Dave Koenig.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. How are you guys doing?
Great.
It's been a very long time since the three of us were in the same building.
A
Sure.
very long time.
Yeah, like in the realm of 10 to 15 years.
I think it's damn near a decade since I got to see you in person. So it's great.
Well, I'm glad you guys are willing to do this. It means a lot to me. And this was a really fucking cool documentary. Andrew, I'll give you a minute. In just a minute, I'll give you a chance to talk about why you chose this one. But thank you for that. So listeners, we'll get right into it. Tonight, we're whitewashing the rat manure and selling it as rice as we flip through the flash pages of an incredible 29-minute documentary from 1981 titled Stoney Knows How. Stoney Knows How is a visit with a master of the oldest art in the world. It is a short, no pun intended, look inside the life and tattoo shop of Leonard L. Stoney St. Clair.
What's that your grandfather used to do? That story about the mailman?
Oh, good gosh, I don't tell that. He came to me with the paper and he named somebody that we all knew, the postmaster in the little town, Cold Camp. Everybody knew Oscar Connor because that's the postmaster. And he said, well, I see some news from home this morning. Yeah, I don't know. I must have been 9 years old. Oscar Connor was indicted. And they think he's going to get 5 years in prison. What did he do, Grandpa? He was whitewashing rat manure and selling it for rice. All that stuff. Well, sure. Me, his little crippled up grandson there, he made us all laugh.
What's it like having a tattoo artist next door?
I wish I had two of them like Stoney. Good neighbor, good businessman, a heck of a good fella. One of the best.
This your first tattoo?
Yeah.
He was with his buddy. Little
Stuck. I think I'm going to get more, though, later on.
Oh, you are. I'm putting comeback in it. I drop a little 2 drops of it in there, you know, comeback. Yeah.
Dan's going to get another one.
Oh, Stoney's not crazy. Must be something to him. All them old coon dog and all of them keep coming back and sending me people. Cusino, all of them.
Tattoo a lot of football players, Scotty?
Yes. These guys can tell you. They see them on them, don't they?
We're all crazy.
No, you're not crazy. Weightlifters, football players, and wrestlers. That's
yeah.
what I get.
That's good.
Did somebody send you to me?
No, I'm just cruising up the avenue.
You haven't heard of me?
No, sir.
Oh, raise your arm up. Well, I'm known all over the world, so have faith in me.
I love this thing.
It's the best.
It's the best. Directed by Pancho Lane and Alan Governor.
Governor.
Yeah. Produced by Alan Governor. Cinematography by Les Blank. This was a Documentary Arts Inc. production. I streamed this on Canopy. I think you can find it on YouTube. We'll have a link with all that in the show notes. Let's get into it. This is a spoiler alert, but go listen, watch this in 30 minutes. You'll have it done.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite parts of this documentary. We've covered, I mean, this is episode, what did I say, 21? And they're all like at almost 2 hours long, an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So watching this one, when it was done, I'm like, oh, I still have my evening.
Right.
This is nice. Let's talk about, Andrew, why we chose to watch Stoney Knows How. I could say that I wanted to find a documentary because of National Tattoo Day. I could say that since I'm fairly heavily tattooed, that it just seemed on brand for what we're doing here. The truth is, I wanted an excuse to have you guys here, so I said, let's do one on tattooing and have 2 of my friends here. There is a bunch of tattoo documentaries out there, but I reached out to Andrew, who is a professional in this field, and I said, what do you want to cover? And you said, it would be hard for me not to say Stoney Knows How. Tell me why this is the one you thought would be the right one for our show.
There are so many tattoo documentaries now, and there's a lot of that kind of like early ones where they'd show them on like TLC or something.
Yep.
And they're a little bit like, oh, look at these weird tattoo stuff. And then, you know, as tattooing kind of becomes more mainstream, you get some really slick, really nice produced ones.
Yep.
But there's something about this that is, it's like pure tattooing. It's just like, it's everything I love about tattooing. It's 30 minutes long. It's about a guy from a completely different era. But the feeling of tattooing when you watch it is you're like, oh yeah, tattoo shops are magical. Like this is, and I think there's something too about like, it's a documentary, and like, you know, Dave was saying earlier, like it's a tattooer, it's a documentary, but it's also like, it's a documentary about a folk artist, about a craftsman.
Right.
And so there's no slick production. There's nothing like,
you know, the music in the background was incredible.
Yeah.
The little bluegrass banjo and whatnot. But you don't, like you said, that the production value is what today would be considered not good.
Right.
But that's part of what made it so good.
That's what gives it that antiquity that you appreciate.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And it looks like, you know, you're watching something that you would watch on PBS about, like, you know, this could be a guy who made brilliant chairs by hand, or somebody who painted in a barn by themselves. Like, it just has the love of the craft, and, you know, it's just, it's a perfect documentary.
It is. And what I think is funny about that is this documentary reminds me of a good old tattoo.
Yes.
You know, it might not have the sharpest lines. it might not, it might have, spread out a little bit. It might have gotten, weathered some, but it's fucking good.
Yeah.
It's there. It holds up.
It's got soul.
Yeah. Yeah. And it tells a story, and that it means something to the people that made it and the people that are involved in that world. If you go, if you were, and I would imagine there are still people alive today that have tattoos by Stoney.
Oh,
Yeah. And if you were to see one of those tattoos, it's seeing one of the originals, one of the masters of tattooing, talk to me. Have you guys seen, have you ever seen one of
I've
his?
never seen one of Stoney's, but yeah, when you see some of like the original, I'd say OGs, or the original guys, when you see some of their work, and it's funny because I've actually had some people, I had a guy come in and he wanted to get a tattoo refreshed or covered up, and it was like an old Sailor Jerry tattoo, and I'm like, nah, I ain't touching that.
Not doing it.
And then when I think when I geeked out about it and I dorked out and I was taking pictures of it, I think that he kind of sensed that it was a special thing, and then I think I actually kind of swayed him in what he wanted to do with the tattoo. But yeah, it's just I kind of geek out when I see some of these tattoos.
Yep.
You'll see him. I've seen a Sailor Jerry back piece in person.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some Bob Shaw tattoos. Seen some tattoos from people who might not be like a even like a lower household name, but like people real locally, like a guy called Buddy Mott in Rhode Island, tattooed forever. Just a great, amazing tattooer, tattooed for years and years. And when you see him, there's something there, there's something there, and they were done, you're looking at something that's 50 years old, and you can, someone might be like, oh, it's a little blobby. I'm like, that's a parrot.
Right.
I know what I'm looking at,
And I can promise you that watercolor tattoo that you have is not going to look
there's tattoos done 5 years ago. I don't know what I'm looking at. This thing, you got on this, jumped directly in the ocean, scraped it across the bow of a ship, and there's a parrot.
And it's still there.
It looks great.
This brings me to what Stoney says. It's all about the shade.
Yeah. It is.
Get that black in there.
If it's got good shading, you can put just a little bit of minimal color.
It's the shading.
It's the shading. So we'll get into some of our favorite or least favorite details. I know, Andrew, you don't have a least favorite detail about this one, but
I found for the sake of argument, I found some.
Oh, did you?
Don't worry.
I'm surprised. I'm impressed.
I didn't think you had it in. I took my assignment seriously.
But before we get into that, here's a very quick synopsis for this documentary. Disabled by rheumatoid arthritis since the age of 4 and forced to use a wheelchair, his growth stunted, Stoney St. Clair, born in 1912, joined the circus at 15 years old as a sword swallower or a hot poker swallower, which it sounds like. Good Lord.
Got a poker in my throat.
Got a poker put in my... A year later, he learned to tattoo, and for the next 50 years, he continued to work as a tattooist, traveling with circus and carnivals across the country. As we watch him work, we see determination, which led Stoney to overcome his handicap, to heal himself and others with the magic of symbols. The film ends with a visit by new school master that they called him in the, which is, it's like new school, huh? New school master tattoo artist Don Ed Hardy, who pays Stoney the highest compliment by asking him for a souvenir tattoo, which was a kick-ass little rat with a top hat, smoking a cigar or a joint or something.
Looks like one of my relatives.
So that was it. That was Stoney Knows How. We did pepper in a little bit of like racing, like car racing.
Got some stock car racing.
Yeah, some stock, which was fun. Just a little bit of a piece or a look, I guess, into Stoney's life and good old Sue who takes him there.
Oh, yeah, Sue's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Go, Dick.
Yeah. She's yelling at the car. I'm like, oh my God.
Like, woo. So this was really fun. I'm glad we covered this one. I liked that it was 29 minutes long, like I said. Before we go into that, maybe let's talk a little bit about how we all know each other. so people know kind of why we're here. I know this is an audio medium. Maybe we'll get a picture before we leave and we'll post this up. But if you can't hear it in our voices, we all have some tattoos, a tattoo or two.
Couple few.
Yeah.
Just one.
Just one anymore, right? These guys I gave them the wrong address to my house. So they were driving around my neighborhood, scaring my neighbors with, the same neighbor, some kid playing basketball.
Gonna have to send that kid a fruit basket or something.
I'll go give him like a card to the podcast and be like, hey, in a few weeks, listen to this because you'll know why these scary gentlemen were in my Years ago, you guys both worked at a local tattoo shop here in Omaha, and my friendship with both of you started plain and simple as me just being a huge fan of yours, which continues. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
I would come into the shop and, feeling like the little kid who, had no tattoos and like, come on, I want to be part of the cool kids club. And, so the work first, but then the way you both conduct yourself as tattooers. And we're going to go into compliment mode here for a second. I have to tell you both that I really, really appreciate how you conduct yourself in a shop.
Thank you.
Thank you,
it
friend.
is and I know you understand this because you both came up in that world too. And I like how Stoney, I really appreciated when we watched this, how he was welcoming to people when they came into the shop, even in the early 80s and late 70s and, and before, when did he start? In the 60s?
Oh, no. Let's see. 30s, maybe?
30s.
Stoney,
Holy
I thought
shit.
I thought it was like 1928 or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Much even earlier. So in the days where, and they even touched on it in the documentary, in the days where the bikers and the sailors were getting tattooed, and it was more maybe an elitist group kind of deal, and maybe not more because it is that in some places now, but that I think is why I was able to connect with both of you, because you were not the people that said, well, you're not quite cool enough to be in this shop and that sort of thing. It was like, no, dude, what can we do to make something cool for you? And I really appreciate that about you guys. So thank you for being that face in the tattooing world, because there's not enough of that.
It's very appreciated.
Of course.
But it's also, when I think it's interesting when you're watching Stoney, the idea that tattooing has always been, there's always been that light there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so somebody like Stoney, you come in, you get a tattoo, you get treated like a person. I know Dave would agree. We literally can't do it without you.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's how we eat. So we got to make sure to be nice to people. But the thing that I love about tattooing, I feel like is something that I appreciate, especially with Stoney or like the old days. It's just like they're friendly, but then they bullshit. You know? I like the sarcasm. I like the joking around, and I like kind of fucking with each other a little bit.
Yep.
But it's like that's the thing I liked about the show, was it just showed about how nice the guy was,
right,
and how friendly he was. But then he still kind of bullshit with you and stuff.
For sure.
And it's fun. There's something makes that more personable.
Again, the tattoo shop is it's a magical place.
It really is.
The right ones. And and it's supposed,
the right ones. Thank you.
It's a place for in my studio it says for anybody but not for everybody. And
that's a great way to put it.
It's a thing where it's like anybody is welcome, but it's just not for everybody, and that's fine.
And that's good. That's fine.
That's a good thing. And so to have going back to when I was just the fella answering the phone at the first shop I ever worked at, people would come in and be like, "Oh, you're the only person who was nice to me on the phone all day." And I was like, "Oh, I don't make tattoos."
Yeah.
And actually that's a poor representative. Everybody here is very mean. So
so I'm sorry that I misled you.
You should.
To tell you the truth, I think I built my career by just being nice. I wasn't very good tattooer in the beginning, and I was just like, I was probably putting a lot of shit on people. But the thing about it though is like I was nice, so they keep coming back.
Yeah.
And then that gave me the practice.
And then when they come back to get that cover up from the tattoo that you did.
Yeah.
Well, you would know.
I say I got busy before I got good.
Yes,
but
I
again,
did too.
then when I worked in nice shops,
Yeah.
I still was the most approachable person, you
right.
know. And then like you kind of get good enough that you can work at shops where you do have a nice clientele. You do have people who are coming in. And
And both of you have spoken to me about how, grateful you are for the clients that you've built up, and especially the repeat clients and things. And you do kind of have the luxury at that point to sort of pick and choose. But I've seen both of you, even at your current, let's just say, level of tattooing and skill level and practice and longevity in tattooing, that even the person that comes in for their first tattoo, you're not going, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you're not worth my time. No, you're still able to say, to the timid little girl that comes in, like, no, this is going to be fun. I'm going to take care of you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not here to be scary. I'm not here to make you feel like you don't belong here. Like, I don't necessarily need your $200 for a tattoo, but I do because
I'll take it.
But I'll take it.
Well, I tell you, I just busted out an affinity symbol the other day, and there's somebody's like, "You're doing that?" I'm like, well, "I'm not going to turn down the money, and I'm going to, that's what they want, and we've talked about it, and I'd love to help them out, I'm not above that."
Tattooing is scary. It's permanent. It's a big deal. So it's like, yeah, it's life is scary enough. Tattooing is scary enough. As long as if you come in, you need to come in the right amount of scared.
Yeah,
you need to come in the right amount.
That is
like,
true. You got to have a little bit of fear.
You got to have your, you got to have your offering. I'm
Don't
a little
come in with your chest.
I'm respectful of what's happening.
Yeah,
this is forever.
Yep.
I trust you. And then when somebody gives you that, then you're like, oh, great. Thank you. And then you respect that. And everybody, you get a cool tattoo. It hurts. You look cooler.
Yeah.
You feel cooler.
Feel better. Yeah. So let's get back to the documentary where the reason we're hanging out besides the fact. Yeah. So I liked when they talked to Stoney, like at the very beginning, they talked to the vacuum and
I wish I had another one just like Stoney.
Yeah, the vacuum and sewing machine.
Here, another 10 Stonies.
And that touches on something that, we sort of alluded to before. He says people who get tattooed are the same people who buy vacuums and sewing machines, which I have both of those things just over here in the room. People think about a person who gets tattooed and they think of the biker and the sailor, which I happen to be both of those as well. So it doesn't really, but that's, not the only people who get tattooed. Do you guys feel like in tattooing, there is still a stigma about people getting tattooed with as saturated as not to use saturation as a term, but in tattooing, but as excuse me, as saturated as tattooing is now, there's a shop on every corner, and most of those have a decent tattooer in them, some of them do anyway. A lot of them do. Do you think there's still a stigma around people who are tattooed or people who get tattooed, or has that pretty much gone away in your opinion? I
kind of feel like, for a while there, I thought it was gone. I felt like it wasn't there. And then of course, every once in a while you get the person who gives you the stink eye or whatever. And, I look at it as a filter system. It's like, oh, cool. And they don't like me. That's one, I don't have to talk to them, but, I used to think I was like, nah, I don't, nowadays there's so many tattooers and it's like, and so many people heavily tattooed that I was like, I don't see that stigma anymore. But we just had like right next to the shop, there's like a cider bar or something. And the amount of people that accidentally walk into the tattoo parlor thinking that it's the cider bar. Then I'm seeing it now because I'm getting people and they walk in and there's almost like a look of fear. And then they're looking like, and it's like when they see us all sitting there or somebody half naked, we're tattooing or whatever. And, there is this weird stigma and some of the reactions, I'm not too particular to, but it's just like, it's funny because then I'm seeing it and I'm like going, wow, there is still a little stigma there, you know?
It is. I think that's exactly it. Like, I think before it used to be any tattoo was scary, or any tattoo was trashy, or any tattoo was a bad idea. And now it's, people have tattoos. It's less.
Right.
But people aren't covered in tattoos.
Right.
And people, even the person that thinks, oh, you know, my friend, my niece, my aunt has a tattoo. They're not that bad. But then suddenly, you're inside of the tattoo shop and you're going, oh, it's like happening right now. Oh, no, I wasn't. I was looking for cider.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know,
I was looking for hard cider.
I'm above a sewing shop. A very awesome sewing shop,
which is awesome.
Big fans of them. And, you know, I walk out to go to the car sometimes, and I will, you know, oh, pardon me, you know, kind of walking out, and a lot of the people are like, oh, hey. But every now and then, you know, a great tattooer, Clem, was just out visiting, and he laughed. He goes, oh, in this town, we have tattoos. Because he's in Santa Cruz, where he's like, oh, nobody looks at me. I don't even have my face tattooed here, you know? But just in Little Wickford, Rhode Island, he's like, nobody's like necessarily, you know, nobody was clutching their purse tight. Yeah. But suddenly you're like, oh, right. We have tattoos. Right. And so you go to sit down and somebody's like, and I don't think it's the same thing if somebody, again, I don't think somebody's like dialed 9-1 and is like hovering over the other one
with their hand
but
shaking.
I just think they're like, oh shit, that's too many tattoos. Like that's a lot. That again,
you made a mistake, son.
Again, or even just the thing where you're like, you go to the beach.
Yeah.
Somebody's like, I got a half sleeve. That's a lot of tattoos. And then they're like, no, that's a bridge too far.
Right.
That's something else. You know?
I do like the stigma or the difference when I'm at the gym and I see all the young guys that got, you know, tattoos on their faces or, you know, barely anything on their arms and they're all acting tough, you know. And then as soon as I walk into the steam room, it's that's what heavily tattooed is, you know, and then it's different because then they all look and it's just like, oh, shit. Well,
you can get your face tattooed in an afternoon.
I know.
To get your entire torso tattooed.
You're talking about years.
That's something else. Yeah.
If you're doing it right. In my opinion.
That's right.
Like if you've got your body you know, and this is way off topic, but we'll do it because that's what we're here for. You know, you'll look at even like a lot of celebrities who go from, you know, 1 year being the pretty boy to next year having every tattoo that you can find in the front page of, you know, Pinterest or whatever. And they're heavily tattooed. It's up their necks, whatever. It's on their face, it's on their hands, it's everything. And they are significantly tattooed. Like
it's inorganic.
Yeah. And it that was forced. You were going for a look overnight. Right. You know, that wasn't, you know,
there's no collection there, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's also not like they, you know, flew out and got like a proper like bodysuit from one, you know, it's just it's inorganic.
Yep. And I would say, so to talk about that stigma of tattooers or the tattoos and people with tattoos, I do tend to feel like there is a little bit of a stigma. Maybe it's just within the people who have tattoos, but a good bunch of tattoos versus a clearly trashy set of tattoos, you know, there's a difference there too, where, you know, if the three of, not to talk us up, but if the three of us are walking down, you know, downtown Omaha or something like that versus, and no offense to all my Council Bluffs friends, but the Council Bluffs style tattoo, you guys know what I mean. There is a difference in that.
Well, I still think there's just something about, and I think that's a cool part about tattooing.
Yeah.
Like it's implaceable.
Yeah.
There's somebody in some small town right now with the coolest collection of tattoos you'll ever see.
Yeah.
There's somebody walking down New York City right now with a bunch of inauthentic garbage.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's kind of, you know, sometimes you're at the post office and you look over and you don't know the person, but you just both have a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
And you both have enough good tattoos. Because, you know, you should have a couple bad ones. Yeah. And you look at each other in that way where you're like, all right.
Yeah,
I see. Maybe not even gonna like hang out and talk or anything. Okay, I see. We're both out here doing mundane chores.
I do have to admit that I do get a little salty when it comes to like when I got the guy working behind a counter at Subway or something, and he's got his neck tattoo, or what even makes me even more mad is if I'm walking past a kiosk in the mall and some kid's got tattoo of lettering on his face and nothing on his arms, and then they stop and look at you and kind of do the nod.
Give you the head nod.
And I'm like, I feel bad. I think I've actually embarrassed my wife because I've actually looked at them and been like, no, we're not even on the same level. No,
not the same. Yeah.
If I had a squirt bottle, I'd squirt him in the face. No.
And that's the thing. Sometimes somebody gives me a look in public and they're looking at me and they're looking at face tattoo, no arm tattoo. Yeah. And they're like, you people are the same. And I'm like, we are not. Right. We are not
Do
the
not
same.
Let's
have we both made an incredible amount of bad decisions? Sure. Yeah. But there's,
I agree with everything you guys are saying. To get back on track.
Back to Stoney.
Tell me something, Andrew, about the documentary as a whole. Like, what do you consider your standout moment, even though this thing was hardly longer than a moment?
It's funny. I took notes. I think this might be the 100th time I've seen it because it's short enough that if I'm in a tattoo shop or I'm hanging out with somebody talking about art or we're sitting around doing something and I say, have you ever heard of this documentary? Yep. And and then I'm that person making you watch a YouTube video while I watch you, you know, but it's
waiting for your response.
Right. It's 30 minutes long, and it is the type of thing that if a tattooer or somebody who considers themselves a tattoo, I don't know, enthusiast? A lover of tattoos, but anybody who just appreciates tattoos, if you watch that and don't get excited to make a tattoo, don't get excited to get tattooed, don't get excited to paint. Yeah. What are you doing? Right. And it's not like me sitting down with like, a high school girlfriend and being like, if you don't like the same movie I like, I don't know. Like
it might be out the door.
Right. It's not that. It's not like you have to like Goodfellas. I mean, you should, but but it's like if you can watch that, you may never watch it again. Right. You might not be in the 100-timer club like myself. Right. But you should watch it and go, man, art's cool. Right. Man, folk is cool.
I think that kind of displays the difference of like somebody who actually loves tattooing and then somebody who's maybe getting into tattooing for all the wrong reasons.
Correct. Absolutely.
I can see that.
Yeah, because there's so many people these days, I think that they try to jump into the tattoo game and they do not know any of the original gangsters of tattooing, or they just haven't done their history because it's all about I think it's like they think they're rock stars without instruments or something, and it's not like that. So I feel the same way. Like when people watch a documentary, or if I see somebody and they're not like, oh man, this is cool, And if they're not, then it's like you can tell who loves tattooing for tattooing and who's not.
And I think that's like watching that. I was taking notes and I realized I was like, oh, I'm just writing down every part. I'm just like transcribing.
Stoney.
But like you watch the interaction he has with Ed Hardy. Yeah. It's so amazing because Hardy at that point is already Hardy. Like they didn't catch a young. No. He's already like an amazing artist. He's already him. That's why he's traveled there, like he knew to go seek out Jerry. He knew to go seek out these Japanese tattooers. He knew to go seek out these black and gray tattooers. So I'm sure he was like, wow, this guy's still alive. He's still tattooing. I can just go I can just go to Columbus and see it. Right. So he goes out there. Stoney's stoked he's there. But Stoney doesn't know who Hardy is, And so he's getting this tattoo, and it's two people who love art hanging out. They're talking about tattoos. They respect each other. Yep. And it's just so fun watching him get tattooed. Yeah. Watching them interact. He's talking about
how he put the color in.
Can I send you? How do you
send them dry? I'll use every goddamn one of them. I use just gum camphor, It's just,
but I didn't like it as much as just the plain Listerine.
Just straight Listerine. Just that thing that happens when like two people who make art, two people tattooers.
When you click enough with someone to, even if you're not going to be lifelong friends, you're talking about something in the and that you both understand.
Right. And it's also funny of just watching, like, Stoney was a carny. So he just has his little
original
preloaded-
carny.
Yeah.
Man.
And Hardy says something and he's just plowing right over him, just talking right over him, you know, like, and Hardy's like just stoked. And it's just
someone who's not bowing at my feet too,
right.
you
It's
know,
it's
today,
so interesting watching that. And same thing, like when I probably watched that the first time, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it now and just being like, this is
still giddy.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and watching him, if you watch him put that rat on Hardy, he's looking at a piece of flash.
You mean freehanding it
backwards?
Well, I was just going to say he did it backwards. He didn't even, he just freehand the thing tattoo and he was looking at it backwards, you know, and I was just like, man, that's awesome.
It's interesting because, like, I mean, that machine sounds like it's going to come apart. It sounds like he's going to tattoo through Hardy.
Yeah.
Because even that Hardy said something. Well, if it sounds good and feels good, I guess it's all right. And you hear it just bang.
One of my absolute favorite parts. Ooh, Stoney, you got a light touch. It's like, this tattoo is sparking. Who knows how many people that needle has tattooed that day.
Know.
Oh, dude.
And it's a good tattoo. I'd wear it. I mean, maybe I'd love it for it to be like a new tattoo, new tattoo needle. That's just
new tattoo needles.
You know?
Yeah, so
a couple new things,
and that leads me to something I wanted to talk about was the no gloves,
the lack of gloves,
probably the reusing of needles.
Or the can of Raid right behind you.
Right.
There's like a can of Raid. You know he's spraying for bugs as he's doing the tattoos.
So I get tattooed at respectable shops, both of yours included. And I've had a couple heaters where it gets infected. Yeah. It heals rough.
It's an open wound.
And was the amount of infection in that time of tattooing, was it the same? Was it different? I mean, because I'm watching a guy with no gloves, as you were just saying, probably reusing needles. And and not probably doing the same. I mean, you guys have, you'll clean the area. It takes you longer sometimes to set up your tattoo station than it does to do the little infinity symbol tattoo. But was it the same? Was it different?
It was not as crazy as people think. I mean, first of all, this is pre-AIDS epidemic.
Okay.
Which changed so many things.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, gloves are good. Gloves protect me more than you.
Okay, fair enough. Yep.
People would clean their needles in a way.
Okay.
Some people would clean their places in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I'm a germaphobe. I know, blood's super gross.
Yep.
Germs are gross. Touching humans, it's a weird job to have.
Dave's like, no, I like to have guys' butts in my face rolling around on the mats.
Hey, it takes all kinds.
Dave's a martial arts guy, so he's used to that.
I mean, but it's like it's simultaneously like, boy, we've really come a long way.
Yeah.
But also, I think tattooing was done in unfamiliar places. No, tattooing was done in places where amongst people who were living lives that were
similar,
dangerous, or they were in marginalized communities, or they were in risk-taking communities. So sometimes things would be blamed on tattooing that might have had maybe more to do with drugs, or maybe tattooing
promiscuity,
there's
the sailors and
it's muddy.
Yeah.
It's muddy.
Yeah.
It's hard. There's a lot of those tattooers who lived a long life.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I think we're doing good now.
Yeah, I definitely.
They used to call it like when you would your tattoo back then, they would call it like biscuits because it would scab up so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like you think about like the way now, compared to like how we, how the healing process and everything. But yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, I agree with Andrew. I mean, back then you're already living on the edge, so a lot of people probably didn't give two shits. Yeah, so it's like I don't know. Yeah, and nowadays, I mean, I was being brought up these days. You're as far as I'm concerned, everybody's got something, so it's kind of like, I got to worry about things, But like Andrew said too, it's like it's always an open wound, and I mean, and anybody and everybody who's been heavily tattooed, we've all had points where you might have had an infection or different things like that because it is an open wound. You're walking around, touching things, and you don't even know
up against something gross.
Your immune system might be shot for something else, and you're just having a hard time fighting off whatever is going on, and then you introduce that amount of
it's hard. Also, you think about too, the history of tattooing in America it's different now, but it ebbed and flowed there for a minute with wartime. And if you're getting on a boat to go to the South Pacific, first of all,
you don't know if you're coming back.
18 or 19, you are, as the parent of a 17-year-old, like they have no idea of long-term consequences. And you're just like, oh, I'm going to Europe. I'm going I'm going to Iwo Jima. Like, I'll put an eagle on me. Who cares? You know, like, how do I take care of this? Great. I'm not listening. I'm out.
The guys in the boat before me, most of them didn't come back, or they were missing their arms or things like that.
Totally different life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, if I were, when we're talking about you had mentioned, how do you watch a documentary like this and have an appreciation for art or tattooing or that, and not feel inspired in some way, or even if it's just nostalgia that you feel because of
general
that
level of stoked,
right? Yeah. For me, the part that like amped me up was watching him draw a tiny little sparrow and then paint it. That process was so satisfying to me to watch. Dave, I know you post a lot of like paint videos and things like that. Watching, whether it's time lapse or in real time or whatever, watching that, there's something so like cathartic. Andrew, you don't do that enough, so maybe up your game a little bit.
I should post more things on the internet.
Yeah, that'd be great. So the tables have turned. Maybe Dave.
I know. I learned how to use social media from Andrew.
I have to come back. Yeah.
But the good thing is we don't have to watch Dave lick the end of his paintbrush over and over,
which I do all the time.
I know that.
Yeah. And the craziest part is then I'm using like acrylic sometimes or different things, and I'm still doing it. I'm like, man, I must have so much lead poisoning.
I was gonna say that's way scarier than the tattooing.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna die because of that.
Yep. So anyway, that sparrow was so nice, and he's like holding his other hand,
right?
Did you see how steady it is, and especially with his hands the way it is, and it was like,
and he's using like an old like inkwell type of pen.
And I think if anybody's listening to this who hasn't watched it, which please go watch it. He with severe rheumatoid arthritis. Like he was in a wheelchair since he was 4. His hands are, they're kind of like they're little claws,
up
and he is drawing at he's drawing at a level that you're looking at and going, this is the son of coal miners,
right?
Carney taught himself how to draw, taught himself how to do anything, and he's doing. That bird is awesome. I'd wear that bird.
It's so good. And it's the size of a quarter.
Yeah. And it's just
it's
like
so
that
good.
level of craft is so it's amazing.
I love that. And speaking of that, Stoney talked about his introduction to tattooing when you said how good
Cap Coleman.
Yeah. And how good favorite. He was on with that. And he walks into
walks into Cap Coleman's shop, and he was just like, and he was like, what does he say? He's like, I'm thinking in my head, I can draw a better eagle than that,
Exactly. So I get a piece of paper.
Hey, excuse me, do you have a piece of paper? I'm going to try to show you up.
This is like one of the like fathers of American tattooing, and he's just like, give me a piece of paper, I'll draw an eagle for you.
Yeah. And he did it, and he's just continued to learn from there. That to get into, I loved the fact that his introduction to tattooing was that he went in there to kind of see, what this is about. And his introduction to art was, if I remember correctly, was the circus, the carnival, like the sign work and things like that. And did one of the guys like quit or died or something
there was
like
a
that?
drunk. The tattooer in the circus there was a drunk.
Put me up there and they say, don't you try anything crazy.
So if you're tired of talking about this, we don't have to talk about it. But do you mind telling me kind of how, we heard Stoney's introduction to tattooing. We had talked a little bit about how as it became a more popular art form, you've got people who are getting into it for maybe some of the wrong reasons. You guys came in the early days of what I would consider and correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the tattoo boom, as things in the 90s started to get more popular and whatnot. And you guys were young in that era. And so as it went, you guys were already established, which good for you. It was good timing. But do you mind talking about how you, your introduction to tattooing? And
I like the time that I came up into it. Sometimes I wish it would have been earlier, but I like it because I got into it. 2001 is when I started tattooing, but it seemed like there was still a rough and tumble, vibe about tattooing. But then it was kind of also the introduction to a lot of graffiti artists and artists getting into it, going, it was like where the two worlds collide, where it's like, it's less rough and tumble and you got more of an art sense. But then I liked the fact that I got to experience that stuff in the get-go. Right. It was a real game changer. But yeah, I remember getting into it. And back then I was, tattooing always interested me, but I started in kind of the wrong way. It was I wasn't into it. I liked the idea of tattooing, but I wasn't I want to get into it because I love tattooing as a craft. Because when I grew up, it was, predominantly when I thought of tattooing, I thought of bikers and so, when I got into it, of course, having kind of a graffiti background, I was like, I want to do all the new school stuff. In the shop that I got into when I started, everybody in the shop was kind of doing that too. Everybody wanted to do this new school stuff. And I remember they were like, we're artists, do this. And then I think we all kind of experienced at the same time, probably about 5-6 years down the road after, I started, we started seeing how these tattoos were aging, and it was just oh shit, and that was the good thing because and I remember I probably had 5 to almost 10 years of bad tattoos in some sense, and then I started realizing I have to learn the rules before I can break the rules. And so then it was I remember kind of going, okay, then it's rewind, learn your history, learn why a traditional tattoo is a good tattoo, or why a Japanese tattoo is a good tattoo. These people have been doing it for so long the right way, and and then it just kind of developed.
Then you can start developing your own styles, and your own things based on the age old traditional things that we kind of understand work for the longevity of a tattoo.
Well, and then you learn to have the appreciation for it. And the thing is, back then, that's when I kind of, because when I started, it wasn't we didn't have internet at the shop or anything. So anybody who came in with Flash or bootleg Flash, it was buy up as much as you can. Yeah. You were holding on to dear life to whatever magazines you had with a few good tattoos in it, which now I'm thinking about, and they weren't that good at tattoos. Right.
You'd buy one tattoo magazine, there'd be 3 tattoos in it. You'd be like, these 3 tattoos was worth
Oh yeah, it's just
50 pages of nothing.
Yeah. Well, and nowadays everything's at everyone's fingertips. So I think the valuable thing that people should do is learn their history. Get back and see why tattooing is, and then because that's what happened to me. I think it took about 10 years almost before I started falling in love with tattoos and tattooing and where it came from. And honestly, to tell the truth, Andrew at my 10-year anniversary for tattooing, he put a lady head on my leg with 10-point antlers on it, and it's just like, Andrew, I have to give you a lot of credit because I started, with your influence, I started learning a lot more about the history, and then I developed a whole new appreciation, and it was kind of like a rebirth of tattooing. I mean, I hate it when people ask me like, how long you been tattooing, and it's just like, I'm like, well,
can I give
since,
you,
22 years, but I'd like to say only maybe about 9.
I don't necessarily want to go back and revisit the tattoos I did when I first started tattooing, but I've been technically doing it for a lot long. And how long have I been tattooing well?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's fun though, because like I'm sure when we met, it's like you love tattooing, and it was like I've always loved old timey bullshit, So it's like it was a thing of it's kind of that same thing of like you be like, well, have you seen this? I can be like, have you seen this?
Right.
And again, like having books where back when it wasn't I haven't been tattooing long enough that it was like. There were only 7 of us or something.
Right.
But it was still like somebody would have a book and you'd all crowd around it.
Like, look at what happened.
Right. And it was just like kind of that getting into tattooing I guess there was probably AOL when I started tattooing, but it was like pre-internet,
Yeah, in a way
it was just not, it was not the same thing. And I got my brother, who's 7 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Came home at like maybe 19 with a big old dragon on the side of his leg. And I was just like, oh,
fuck yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know we could do that. And my parents looked at me and were like, oh, I don't think we can.
You can't.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, and he and his friends, and he brought me to hardcore shows, and I'd see these guys with tattoos. You'd see people that I'm thinking now where I'm like, this person was covered in tattoos.
Right.
They had 3.
They had a couple.
They had 5, And I just was like, this is so cool. This is so cool. And I pretty early on loved kind of that traditional tattoos.
Yeah.
But I was kind of drawing graffiti stuff, and I was doing this. And the first shop I worked at, just answering telephones.
Yeah.
They had no love of that stuff. And I was kind of told, oh, you're wrong. And then I went and started working at a shop in Kansas City called A1, and I walked in, and Brennan, shout out to Brennan, looked at my I was like, I'm a tattooer. And he looked at my portfolio and he said, no, you're not. He's like, but
maybe someday.
Yeah, you're he's like, there's something here. Do you want to be a tattooer? I was like, yes. And he's like, well, I can teach you how to put a tattoo on. And that shop was like, oh, no. Like, you have like that stuff you liked it for a reason. It's good. Come back to it. And I was all over the place of making just the weird, just sorry, everybody. But it was like, yeah, my bad. But it's like, they were, that reason, like this outline, I remember doing like one of my, first tattoos in that shop. Mm-hmm. And he's standing over my shoulder and he's going, what the hell are you doing? Put the color in and let the color do its job. Because I was probably like had a little beret on and was like, if I mix a little here and he's like, what do you do? First of all, I wasn't good enough at color theory to even be doing that, let alone on this poor gentleman's back who probably was just on his lunch break was like, I'll get a Grim Reaper by this dipshit, and it was kind of then like
Kermit the Frog
meeting some of these people that I had loved their tattoos. Yeah. And I was thinking, and they were the ones being like, oh yeah, no, I made crazier tattoos. That was maybe not the right way. Like you can innovate so much, but like skin is skin, learn the right way of doing things. And once you know why we do stuff, you can be a fucking weirdo after that.
Sure. Yeah. So. And that's what I was kind of alluding to. Like,
well said.
Like, yeah, you learn the fundamentals, the things that work. And this is coming from someone who isn't a tattooer. That's not my art. But understanding, you learn the things that are important, what makes a tattoo last, what makes it bold, what makes it stand the test of time, and what makes it appealing to the eye when it's on the skin. I mean, whether, what you sketch on a piece of paper is not necessarily going to translate well into a tattoo. Sometimes, if you're a tattooer and you draw it on a piece of paper, it might, because that's how you're thinking. But then you can sort of develop your style, which both of you have done magnificently. So one more shout out. Stoney's first tattoo was a star on his own hand by his own hand. Did you guess your first tattoos ones that you put on yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it?
Not on my hand.
Well,
It's
thankfully.
a skull and some birds.
Is it covered now?
An anchor? No, it's on my thigh.
Okay.
You and I are probably the only people that haven't covered their first tattoo.
Yeah.
What was
yeah.
yours, Dave?
Oh, for fuck's sake. I did like a fish with some flowers on the whole left side of my calf, and
A fish? Like
asked
a
me how I
koi or
fucking
like
twisted it. I think it was my rendition of a koi, which
Okay.
is fucking far off. You know? But I remember being all twisted trying and thinking like, I'm gonna show like how devoted I am and do the whole side of my calf. And boy, was I fucking dumb. But
I'm with you, buddy.
yeah, you know, and the thing about it though is people, you know, some people are, you ever gonna finish that or cover it? I'm like, no.
At this point,
that's my scar. It reminds me.
At this
not
point,
to
it's part of
fuck
the
around.
story. Yeah.
I have the skull is the least intimidating skull ever. It's very real scrub and bubble skull.
Yeah.
It's just no good.
So,
It's no good.
let's see. So Stoney does a free-handed cover-up on a dude in the
With the rose.
rose. Yeah. Which, first of all, the free-handed thing was blowing me away. I've never seen anybody tattoo something without. I mean, both of you have drawn on me. You know, with you've got your Sharpies, and you make your, you know, and you might have to.
I probably have free-handed a lot of stuff on you. You just didn't know. I was working on your back.
That's true. That's true. You have been.
Your ass and everything.
You have been up in my asshole. That's true. But
You said it.
I did. Yep. It's on national airwaves now, whatever.
If you think about what he's doing there, it's
Yeah.
all a formula.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he is tattooing. Again, it's like it's as much craft as it is art
Yeah.
with him. So he is making a rose on this person, but he's making it in the same way that you would construct a rose on paper if you were making it like that. So it's like it's simultaneously so impressive, but it's also just like I'm sure he's like, I can do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
like
I've done these roses.
And at that
Yeah.
point, did you see when he is placing that stencil? He's placing the Moby Dick stencil.
Yeah.
Like that's how you made a
so
stencil.
awesome.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's how you
yeah,
make a stencil.
that
Charcoal.
blew me away.
Yeah.
So he said, and you guys can hopefully, I'm sure you can kind of.
Not everybody reads Moby Dick.
Doesn't
So he uses-
Schickman,
Yeah.
Scott Schickman
Yeah,
still
Scott
does
Schickman.
that?
God bless him. He'll still carve. He'll
Shout out
carve
to
an
him,
acetate
man.
stencil
Yeah.
and tattoo you.
Okay. So
I love you, Scott.
yeah, I actually have done some of his work on like a piece of leather
Yeah,
before. So
yeah.
yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. So Stoney was talking about he uses powdered charcoal in the grooves of a stencil,
So you take
So-
a piece of acetate,
which is
like a thin piece of plastic.
okay.
Yeah. And you take a record needle or something like
a
that.
stylus.
You almost carve the design
Yeah.
in.
You're carving it in.
Then
your-
you rub.
Yeah.
And it sinks into the little carved area.
Yep.
And then you wipe off the excess. And then I think he said he did bacitracin or something.
Yeah. And then so you're basically,
Lay it
so you
on.
can't wipe the stencil at any point.
Yeah, you'll wipe it right the fuck
Right
off.
off.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask. So with you guys, with the what's the machine called that you guys use for stenciling?
Oh, a thermofax.
Yeah.
Thermofax. Okay. When you do that, you can get several wipes in before it's gone to the point where you can't see it. You eventually do kind of get rid
Yeah,
of it,
you need to be
but-
careful with it, but you can lean on it. You can
Right.
wipe. You can, yeah.
And there's, there's ways if you apply it right, it stays on pretty good.
Sometimes too well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I just tattooed a guy yesterday, like his face, and we were trying to wipe off a little wave above the lip and a wave here. And it was like, I finished and I was like, I'm sorry, that stencil's, it's like still there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I apparently put that on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But you're saying with this stenciling process that he was using, one wipe and you're
Oh, it'd be gone.
I mean, it's literally charcoal suspended in Vaseline or bacitracin.
okay.
Just laying on top of the
It
skin.
would just smear.
Yeah.
it'd be gone, yeah.
I mean,
It's amazing.
it's so cool.
But it explains why somebody like that would be like, well, I can't.
why even?
Why bother?
Right.
I can make these. I can make these shapes with my
Right.
eyes closed.
Okay, fair enough. Have you ever done like a naked skin, no stencil tattoo on someone or on yourself or anything?
I have.
I've definitely added stuff or like kind of.
Yeah, you add the designs or whatever.
Probably nothing. I probably haven't gone like.
I'm gonna put a Kermit the Frog on.
I think I had one guy request. He's like, you know, do like a dragon head or whatever, and I was like, freehand, nothing, no marker, nothing. He's like, yeah, and I was just like, man, your risk. I'll do it. Yeah, I just want to see if I can do it, you know. And actually, it turned out much cooler than I think he deserved. I was like, fuck, I did it, man. That was really cool.
Oh, damn it.
Why couldn't I draw it like that on paper?
Yeah,
you
no
know,
lessons were learned by anybody.
Thank God. Because that could have went south real bad.
Yeah, that's cool. It's got to be a little bit, you know, not just for the client, but for the tattooer. Got to be a little bit nerve wracking.
Well, again, I think like you're thinking where he is, like that rose is going. If he carves it, if he stencils it, if he does it, doesn't matter. It's going to look exactly the same. Those are, it's muscle memory.
Sure.
You know,
if you watch Stoney too, he follows, what was it? I think it was like SB or something, the initials, but he follows the line of the B with the rose petal. I mean, you could,
that's
done
another
it
thing
thousands
too.
of times. So he was just like, you know, I can do this, you know.
The only name you ought to get on yourself is
And if you hear any of us when it comes to cover-ups, and people are like, I want a cover-up. You like flowers?
the most diverse thing. If it's not
I can bend those petals any way they go.
You've both done cover-up. My first tattoo that I got from Andrew Milko was a cover-up on my shin of a really poorly done, blown out, like shield and whatnot. And you put an eagle and skull over it, which still looks
with flowers,
nice. With flowers, and feathers. Feathers are a good
hard
thing.
to beat. Yeah, you kind of got all the hits on that one.
Yeah, and Dave did a huge cover up for me of a really shitty design that some asshole put on me.
Some guy did. Some guy.
No, so Dave did a big
you've been tattooing a while when you're starting to cover up your own
work.
Right. So did you ever cover up your own stuff? I'm like, it was long ago enough.
And then somebody convinced me to do the whole white on black thing when I was like, don't ask me. I even posted, I was like, okay, I did this. Don't ask me to do it. And then you're like, hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
I'm like, all right.
I didn't read the caption. I want that.
I did. I did read the caption.
Oh, he did. Even in his text message, he's like, I know, but will you? I'm like, well, I'll do it.
It's okay to say no, but please don't say no, because I love this tattoo. I think both of you have also put a whole lot of comeback into the tattoos.
I put a two drops of comeback in there.
Okay,
definite.
Known the world over.
Yeah.
Have faith.
I loved Stoney's like bedside manner, like those little quips and things that he said. You know, you'll be back. I put some comeback into your tattoo. You'll come back.
Can't guarantee it. Past 10 days past
your
keep it out from keep it out from freight train.
My favorite was when he talked about the keep it out from under a freight train. That's the best way to describe a like tattoo aftercare. Like I can't guarantee
keep it out from under freight train.
10 days past your dad.
Yeah.
Keep it out from underneath freight trains.
Yep. And the only safe name to put on you is mom.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great.
If you tattoo around, I mean, God, I'm sure Dave has heard all of mine. You know, you just have the things you say.
Oh, yeah.
I put the stencil on. Go take it for a test drive in the mirror. You know,
and then you just like face palm yourself. Like, why do I say it?
No, it works. Everybody, you know, it's the same. You say a couple things. Everybody, you know.
Yeah.
We're all having fun.
We get used to that. Being in the shop, you know everybody's what they're gonna say. Yeah. How they're gonna say it.
Their
your little patter.
All their filler words.
Yep. Your little responses.
And you could probably tell when somebody's like not enjoying the company of their client.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, oh, he just brought out that. But speaking of bedside manner, Dave.
Yeah.
I think it's time for the world over the podcasting network to hear about some of your bedside manner when it comes to.
I don't know if I want to talk about that.
Yeah, you do. The only bedside manner I got from Dave was a nice, cool whistle. into my my butthole.
So the funny thing is anytime the guys at the shop can bring that up, they will.
Yeah, it comes up every time I walk into your shop, pretty much. Time to put that story on the airwaves. You're welcome. So just real quick, so Dave did a back piece, back bodysuit, however you want to cut, from my neck to the back of my knees, including all the spaces in between. I am a gentleman, so I do not shave my own self when I go see these guys. I let them do it because if I'm paying you money, I'm paying you for the experience. And the experience that I want is another man shaving every part of me.
Well, right? And it didn't help that you got the most hairy, burly ass I've ever seen.
Right.
I mean, I can't believe the hair that's growing out of the thing. Man. You put 2 ponytails in that? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I do. I've braided it. Yeah. But so as one would, Dave, he's shaving my butt cheeks. Okay.
The perks of the job.
Yep. And to try to make it a little less awkward, Dave has the brilliant idea that he needs to start to whistle to take away some of the awkwardness.
What? All right. Okay. I'm getting you set up, Yeah. I've got you standing there and I'm in the pleasant position of having to be like pretty much down on my knees behind you.
Yep. Looking at my nuts. Back.
And I mean, what kind of small talk do you make with another man as you're shaving his ass? And so like, I'm soaping you up, slowly. And then, and then I had to go through like I don't know, like 26 razors with, hair. But and the thing is I just remember thinking I'm like, right, small talk, make small talk when you're doing it. It's not the first butt I've had a tattoo. So it's just like, I remember asking you like, how was your New Year's and this and that and that, how's the family, blah, blah, blah. And then after a while, you expire in conversation.
Right.
And so I was just like, I didn't think about it. And then I just was like, I just started whistling as I'm like, as I'm shaving his wet behind, the old gluteus maximus.
Yeah.
And then you go from there, I guess.
Yeah. I tell him, I said, Dave, man, you got to stop whistling. You're blowing right into my butt. And that was the eruption from Jay and Tobias and all.
I was wondering why you kept scooting closer to me. I was like, why is he getting so close?
I think too, there's that thing where it's like, I mean, all jokes aside, it really is just like another day at the office.
Right.
Yeah,
so somebody's like, I mean, when I was getting my back, like I'm sitting there with my, my chones pressed to the front of me and people are just, and I'm like, oh, suddenly the hunter has become the hunted.
Right.
And, Ed and Clem are talking about like what they're going to have for lunch because it's just normal.
I'm just so used to it.
Like
never have I
until somebody tells you you're whistling. And, and you're just like, okay, you just brought this.
You made it weird, Jeff. Good job.
I'm like leaning on I'm like, tattooing somebody's ribs. I'm like slung over them, half singing along to a song I only know like 3 words to. And
I was tattooing a homie not too long ago. I'm tattooing his stomach, and I don't even realize my hand's like on his cock, like as I'm tattooing. And I'm like, why does he look so fucking nervous? And I was like, oh, okay, sorry about that, dude.
Don't stop. Anyway,
no sexual harassment here, buddy. Believe me.
So thanks for that, Dave. I appreciate that.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was.
You're gonna have to put pictures up on the internet of that one.
Of you
on your OnlyFans. Yeah.
Oh, my OnlyFans. Yeah. Let's see. A question was asked to Stoney during this. Do you feel like when you're tattooing that you're helping people somehow? He responded saying that he's providing something that someone's craving. So that's a help, but it depends on what design the person is getting. He talks about how pointless he feels it is for someone to get a banner that tells the world that they're into something stupid. He was talking about swastikas.
A lot of people
and leaves and things
a lot
like
of
that.
people like to have fun with pot. I myself had fun with alcohol. But you don't need a tattoo that says I am a drunkard.
Right.
I am high as a kite.
Who needs to watch the show? He just rehearsed the whole thing, and you are so good at the voice, man. We were all talking how hard it would be. I'm like, man, we've all been doing it, but you're spot fucking on.
So
comes from the heart.
Well delivered.
So how have you guys had people that have asked for questionable symbols and things?
Yeah,
I mean,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially especially in the beginning. You know, it was like-
yeah. It's less now,
okay.
but
I
you know,
think now, I don't.
It's
You know,
less now.
like especially with like the white supremacist
Yeah.
bullshit. You know, like back in the day, we used to get it a lot, and then one day it was just like I'm like, well, they must have their own tattooers or they're all gone.
You know what I
until
think?
Trump got into office. When Trump came into office, all of a sudden there was a rise of all this
back on the
fucking white
table,
trash that
yeah.
was coming out. And you're like, oh fuck, you know.
I want a red flag with
Yeah.
blue cross and
yeah,
yeah. Like,
you know, I think it was like I despite being from Rhode Island, my first real walk-in tattoos were done north of Kansas City.
right.
And the outskirts of Kansas City, not Kansas City proper, but like, you know, you get into some of those small towns, those guys would come in and ask for they'd ask for some
I want 2 lightning bolts. in the shape of
yeah,
an
you know,
F.
it's
Yeah, I always
pretty-
had them like try to trick you into it. you
right,
know,
right.
like,
I just want a little I just want this little
I'm an
thing.
electrician. I just
Yeah.
want these little lightning bolts on my neck. And,
Yeah,
and,
and then-
and then you're just like,
Yeah.
I remember one
thankfully-
guy was like, dude, we'll do a whole thunderstorm on your neck. You know, you just fucking man the fuck up. We'll sack up and we'll do this huge thing. He's like, no, I just want the 2 lightning bolts. And I was just like,
I'm just a coward. I don't want a big tattoo.
dude, I know what the fuck that is. I
Thankfully,
ain't doing that shit.
thankfully, at the shop outside Kansas
Yeah.
City, those tattoos weren't happening.
Okay.
But anyway, it's not regular, but you never know when you get, or you get to have and be like, you know what the stars and bars are? And you'd be like, the Union Jack?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Like,
what is it that
you an Anglophile? Me too. You know,
I'm
it sounds
from
fun.
Australia.
Yeah, uh-huh.
You're an Aussie.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly. Yeah, but I remember one time this guy came in and pulled into the car, like the parking lot, in a
the
truck.
car park.
The car park, and it was a Ford F-250, but like a mid '80s. More like the rust was load bearing at this point. Two giant Confederate flags in the back, and I'm just like, oh Christ Almighty! And dude walks up, and he's got like his tank top on and a denim jacket with like the fleece line, and he's got like that look where like the work boots are untied, and he's just like hair slicked back. I mean, he looks like a
Imagine what Andrew's talking about, and you're correct.
Yeah. Imagine if Napoleon Dynamite had really questionable views on politics, and he's walking
And
around,
he's a little bit racist.
walking around, and he keeps going. I was like, "Do you need help with anything?" He's like, "I'm looking for something, but I'm not sure if you have it." And I'm like, "Oh, that's it. These are his code words.
You already know.
You got some code words." And he's looking around. He's like, "Yeah." And he walks up. He goes, "Well, I didn't see it on the walls, but maybe you have one." And I'm like, "Oh, great. This guy is gonna he's gonna ask me for the most racist tattoo I've ever heard in my entire life. Is there gonna be an altercation?"
Right.
And he looks at me and he goes, "You know what a Pegasus is?"
And
And it was like 30, there's like a half second where I'm like, wait, are Pegasuses racist?
Right.
And then I was like,
What am
like
I
a
missing?
flying horse? He's like, yep. And I was like,
You're in the right place,
yeah,
buddy.
I know what those are. He's like, I got a good one on my wall. If I bring it in, can you do it? And I told everybody this story. And they, I like a joke here and there. So I think they assumed I was being hyperbolic. And then I came in after my day off, and they're like, "Your buddy came back. I tattooed a giant Pegasus on him."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right."
That turned out way better than it should have.
every now and then. So, and maybe while he was sitting there, he thought, maybe I should take those flags off the truck and chuck a couple flying horses on the back.
Yeah.
I hope so, man. That'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah. I loved that Stoney mentioned maybe someday someone will see my grave and say he didn't butcher it up. How do you guys feel about that as far as like, are you guys looking to leave? Like,
I think he says it perfectly.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, right?
Says it
Like,
perfectly.
I did it right
Yeah.
in the eyes of, the people that cared about it. And I didn't fuck it up too bad.
Yeah.
And, hopefully, obviously I know you guys well enough to know that, a big part of why you do what you do is because it's a job and you need to feed your families and things like that. But there are plenty of things in the world that you could have done to feed your families. So there is a love, a passion for art, whether it's tattooing or painting or creativity in some other ways. So I know that the answer to, is this just a job for you, to you is no, it's not just a job. But besides cornbread and black-eyed peas,
that is what keeps me going.
What keeps you guys going in this world? I mean, I know I've had conversations with both of you about how it's a more difficult world in some ways for tattooing, and to make it a decent living in that, in a lot of ways. What keeps you wanting to do this? We have collective friends who have recently stopped tattooing, that have been doing it their whole working careers pretty much. And, is this something you guys feel like you're going to keep doing for a good long time? Is it, and if you don't want to answer that, that's okay.
If money wasn't an object and it was like, I didn't need it, I think I'd still every day be painting and tattooing, at least 3 days a week, tattooing, just because, I don't know, it's in me, you know, and I don't think, I'd still do it, and, I lose time without wasting time, and if you get me tattooing or you get me painting or drawing, I mean, I look at the clock, hours have went by, and apparently that means I love it. And so that's what I should do for a living. So, I feel bad for anybody who has long ass days because they're doing what they don't love for a living. So figure it out, but I'm going to do it as long as I possibly can, age always catches up with you. So you just got to kind of make sure you're prepared for that too.
Yeah.
You got to make art.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make something. Even if you don't,
create.
You just got to do something. And I had a minute there where I was wondering what my relationship was to tattooing and the world and all of these things. And it, watching stuff like Stoney or tattooing people like you, Jeff, where you're like, oh, this is the thing. There are parts of tattooing I feel no connection to anymore. There are parts of the world. There are parts of tattooing that have come, since Dave and I have been tattooing, that I just am like, I don't know what this is. I don't recognize it as something, but I don't have to. It's okay. It's not for me. I do the thing I do. People seem to like doing it. It is a thing where it's like, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not curing much of anything.
Yeah.
But somebody comes to you, and sometimes somebody just wants to feel better and have a cool rose on their forearm.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have lifelong friends because you've tattooed the entire front of them. And tattooing is the parts of tattooing that I love. I still love. There's still magic there. There's still something there. And when I was kind of like, oh God, I don't know, what am I doing? And I would have, clients and friends being like, making tattoos, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Even my dad was like, well, you like the thing you do. People like that you do the thing you do. That's got to count for something.
For sure.
And it's like, I think in as an artist, you just hate yourself and you just hate the things you make. And sometimes that voice can get louder than the other voices.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. I love stuff. I like being outside. I like hanging out with my family. But there is no other option than to create art. And the fact that I can make tattoos for people is amazing. And the fact that people want to
pay
get
for
tattooed. And the fact that people want... There's just something about somebody going, you can have a tiger on your arm.
Right.
And somebody is like, Andrew, I want the tiger from you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. That's great. Let's do that. It's amazing that people could have tigers on their arms. Don't. I mean, I don't think I have a tiger tattoo, but I love, but you can have, I don't know. We only get, you got one body. They're fine. Put some stuff on it.
Yeah. You rarely do you walk into a person's house without something on their walls, right? And if you do, I'm questioning their sanity, honestly. And so I clearly I agree with that.
Right.
One of the things that I get asked a lot as just someone who has tattoos is, you know, do all of your tattoos mean something? Is there, you know, and the answer is besides just thinking it's cool as shit and I liked the design and I liked the person who put it on me, no.
Right.
I do think, you know, which is why I really enjoyed when Ed Hardy was in Stoney's shop and he's like, I really liked the rat and how that looked and the flash piece, you know, it didn't have like, this represents my mom. And I have those tattoos. I do think it's important. And it is a very impactful way to remind yourself of things in your life. Sure. And, you know, and it's a permanence and it does, in my opinion, it can mean a lot, but how do you guys feel about that?
I think if you would notice, most of the time, people in the beginning get stuff they feel like that has to have some sort of meaning. But I mean, like, in all honesty, my favorite tattoos I have are either the ones I think just look cool or, you know, look cool to me. I don't care if it looks cool to other people, but or the tattoos that were funny, you know, like the ones that I got that I'm just like, there's a joke behind it. For those are my favorite ones. Like if I could, you know, take off all my tattoos, you know, I'd either get like one full bodysuit or something, you know, the Japanese style, or I would be like, I just want hilarious tattoos all over me because there's for some reason there's a story, and you know, I don't, you know, like, yeah, everybody, you know, some people got to have meanings. Yeah, I think the more you get them, the more you're like, it's just fun.
I agree.
I think you can have the most meaningful tattoo, but ultimately it still has to be a good tattoo.
Yeah,
and it has to be, more, you know, what is somebody like what do you like tattooing? Nouns, you know, where it's just like, it's like,
I'm so using that.
If I have, you know, to continue strangling the metaphor, but like if I have a giant tiger on my forearm and it's for something very important, it doesn't matter because when I'm handing you money or shaking your hand or high-fiving, there's just a big cool tiger on my forearm. And so I think that Dave said it. It's like when when I first was getting tattooed,
absolutely,
they have meaning. You're trying to shoehorn meaning into things,
right?
But like I've got, you know, this black cat on my throat. That's for my mom. But like nobody has to know that.
And that's
it's just a cool black cat on my throat.
Agreed.
You know.
And I'm thankful that I was surrounded by good tattooers and good people with tattoos when I first started, because my first tattoos are for my mom and dad. But you would never know that it's a fox and a knight, right? You wouldn't know that. So but I definitely had the meaning behind them, you know, and but there is also something very you know, the having someone's name on you or something, like you've got your lady wife right there on your neck.
I know.
Right?
But I'm like, you probably shouldn't get people's names tattooed on you. And they're like, what's that on your throat? I'm like, don't worry about me.
Don't ask me.
This isn't about me.
Yeah. You know, so I agree with you, Dave. Like when I first started, everything had to have some kind of meaning, and then it turned into, I really like the way Ryan Spangler does panther heads. So I'm getting a Ryan Spangler panther head.
And you think about it, like, God,
that is
think about the spirit of Stoney St. Clair and somebody like Ryan Spangler. You go, you sit down, you get a great tattoo, tells you some great jokes, you feel loved, you walk out, and what's that panther mean? It means it's a goddamn panther.
Yeah,
you know, it's a
panther. It looks cool.
And I think that
I think I did this thing. I think Spangler did a boar head on the back of my calf. I don't have anything to do with boar heads. I ain't nothing about it. I think him and I were working at Sailor's Grave one day, and we were bored, and I was just like, I was like, yeah, you want to tattoo me? And he's just like, you want boar head? I was like, fuck yeah.
Yes, I do.
Fucking do it, man.
I had a dream I was getting a gorilla head tattooed on me, and I went in for my birthday and had Spangler put a gorilla head with a wrench in its mouth because it was in my dream.
Gorilla head.
And people sometimes will be like, what does that gorilla head mean with the wrench in its mouth? I'm like,
I think we were at Sailor's Grave. You put a monkey head with a knife in its mouth wearing a little derby or something.
I sure did, yeah. And
that's what you do. It's fun.
And I think you can watch sometimes when somebody switches to where they know they want tattoos now. It's now more just, I get tattooed. I'm a person who gets tattooed. So maybe something needs to mean something.
The show
or
cat
maybe
is
something. I know this is a luxurious cat. But you don't. Right. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be spelled out for you. You know, it can be. It can be something fun. It can be a souvenir. It can be remind you of a time. You know.
Yep. So Stoney St. Clair died peacefully in his sleep on December 3rd, 1980, at the age of 68. Dave, how old were you in 1980?
I would have been, what, like 5 years old?
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
That was just a little bit of a jab there. But, yeah, I was 4 years out from being
I was negative. I was -3.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I like to talk after the credits roll. Kind of how did you feel after watching this documentary? You know, I loved this documentary. I thought it was really good. I loved Tony's take on tattooing, the way a person should feel when they walked in there. He and Ed Hardy kind of mentioned that some people would come in there and expect to see blood and gore and like more like kind of, he said, like lurid, almost like a sideshow or whatever. But instead it was real, normal people enjoying art and wanting, you know, to carry it around with them. So I just walked away from this feeling good. Like it ended. I wasn't tired after watching it. I wasn't, you know, wondering, you know, there wasn't a story that was untold. There wasn't, you know, it was just, to me, it felt good as someone who has tattoos and has been around tattoo shops. You know, his is the type of shop, you know, when I walk into 10th Sanctum, or when I walked into your studio, or when I walk into like Scrimshaw, you know, that sort of, hi, like, how can I make your day better? You know, that's the feeling that you want. So that's kind of how I walked away from this documentary. It was like I just got a 29-minute tattoo that looks really cool. You know, how about you guys? What was your feeling after it was?
I think my I love it. I loved every bit of it. You know, I even loved the girl yelling at the cars. You know, like it was great.
Yeah.
You know, I love the nostalgia of it. I love, you know, I mean, that dude being a sword swallower to a sword swallower and a carny, all the way to becoming a tattooer, you know.
Yep.
And but I mean, I think one of the things that I admired most about Stoney was, like, when he was talking about people asking him about his handicap and does your handicap get in the way? He's like, oh, hell no, man. I've been dealing with this since I don't worry about that. He's like, I'm just too determined, you know, or, I mean, you know, I don't know. There's something about it. It's like, it gives me that much more respect for the guy.
Absolutely.
You know? And so, yeah, anytime I hear any, you know, tattooers whining about how bad they got or whatever, now it's like, fuck off, man.
Here,
you know,
let me send you a link to
that.
Yeah.
Like they should watch that. But I mean, you know, there's something, there's an admiration about it that I just, you know, I was like, man, that's so awesome, man. You know,
it really, like, I was watching it. I was going, I get to make tattoos today.
Oh, that's fun.
I get to go, you know.
I get to go do that.
I get to go, you know, I'm in town making some tattoos.
Yeah.
Went to Liquid Courage, sat next to a friend.
Yeah.
Made some birds.
Yeah. Did you make a tiny little sparrow?
Back. They were banana kits. Banana kits?
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, there's a tiny Caribbean tanager. But
tell me more.
Yeah, they enjoy sugar.
Okay.
They're small and yellow and black. But
Sounds
yeah,
cool.
you watch it, and I went, you know, like, if you're watching something, if I'm watching a Formula One race, I'm enjoying myself. I'm not a race car driver.
No.
I'm entertained, but I don't really want to drive a race car. You know. When I'm watching Stoney, I'm going, oh, I do that thing that he does.
Yeah.
And in as Stoney would want it, I'm doing it with the intention, and it's like I am continuing that.
Yeah.
I know my place in the timeline. You know, like I'm trying to look forward, but I'm also looking back, and I'm trying to make nice, timeless tattoos and make people's days better and make people's arms better. And doing that and just watching that, afterwards you feel good, you know?
Absolutely.
You definitely feel better than watching a bunch of people not get haunted
to be scared
in a haunted house.
In a haunted house.
You know, watching that Stoney documentary makes me just like, it just makes you feel true when you're tattooing. Makes me. It's like, and then when I paint, I watch that David Smith, the Ludlow and Blunt. He's a sign painter and glass.
Of course, yeah.
I watch. I literally will put that on while I'm painting, and it just puts me in the mode to paint. Yeah. And I literally could be at the shop and put on Stoney, and it would just make me want to tattoo. You know, it's just like, there's certain things. You know,
that's cool. You know, and talking about like a well-made documentary, the kind of home movie raw feel just added to the fun of this one. You know, old footage, vintage looking video, like I said, added to the aesthetic. This is exactly what it should have been. I will say that the opening credits were probably the best opening credits I've ever seen in a documentary, because they're just flash pages that says Stoney Knows How. Yeah,
they're so good.
You know, and the best looking like pinups and things like that. It was incredible, and it looked like that was a legit flash page that somebody drew. Yeah. It's probably sitting on someone's wall right now, hopefully, and still being enjoyed. So that's kind of our time, guys. But we need to get to the ratings. So every show we rate our documentary with a quote unquote official documentary rating. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being as bad as whitewashed rat manure and 10 being as good as Stoney St. Clair's outlook on life. The item we use for scoring changes, and this week, why don't you tell us, Andrew, what we chose for our rating item?
Well, we chose a Columbus rat.
The Columbus rat.
They don't got rats like that in San Francisco.
No, only in Columbus. Was Stoney in Columbus?
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yep. I meant to ask that throughout, and I'm sure it said it in the documentary, but I must have missed that. So Columbus rats is our rating item. Andrew, let's start with you. How many Columbus rats?
I think anybody listening would know it's 10.
It's a 10 out of 10.
It's 10.
This to you is the best documentary, or on par with the best documentary out there.
Absolutely. It is great on every level. It's interesting. It's well done. It
scratches all your itches.
Yeah. I mean, if you, for a 30-minute documentary about the life of a very interesting man who pursued an interesting career, like it's perfect. It's perfect. And like I said, it feels like a documentary. Doesn't feel like a beer ad. It doesn't feel like there's not like cool guitar cutting in and out. Quite the opposite. You know,
banjo cutting in and out.
Very cool banjo. Yeah. And it's great. It's a 10.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Mr. Koenig, how about you, sir?
I give it a 10. It's been one of my favorite ones from back in the day. You know, I do like how short it is. Me too. You know, I like the fact that it kind of leaves me wanting more and to know more about him. But then there's this weird thing knowing that he actually passed away before it actually was out.
Yeah. It came out in 81.
And because of that, it just kind of, there's something that makes it even more true. And you're just like, you know, like watching it and, you know, and the quality of it, you know, I can see a lot of people complain about that, but I'm just like,
That's
love it.
Part of what makes it so good.
Something about it like that just made it
and it's still like time. There's interesting shots. There's interesting compositions. It feels both real and you know, somebody knew what they were doing, but also you're limited by budget and technology.
Yep. I gave this 9 out of 10 Columbus rats. I had mentioned in the past on this show that it's going to be really difficult for me to give something a 10 out of 10. 9 is one of the higher ones that I've given. And I really enjoyed this. Not just the documentary, but hanging out here with you guys. So on brand with how evil and dirty tattooers are. That means that our official documentary rating for Stoney Knows How is 9.666 Columbus rats.
Nice.
Medals. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank
you.
I want you both to know that I'd let either of you freehand something on me at any point, as long as it's a tiny sparrow or something.
You know,
like that.
yeah, we'll get those initials covered up for you.
Yeah, yeah. Dave, this is your chance to plug some stuff if you want. Where can people find you if they want to?
Work over at 10 Sanctum Tattoos in
Omaha, Nebraska.
Yep. And then I guess I don't know. I guess I mean, to tell you the truth, out of every social media, the only one I actually look at really is Instagram. So that would be Dave Koenig Art, Koenig Art, and yeah.
Very cool. Andrew, how about you, sir?
I am on the internet.
Okay. All right. Next week. No. Where on the internet?
You'll find
on
me.
The old internet.
Yeah, I tattoo in a studio in Wickford, Rhode Island, a little seaside town.
Old haunted church.
An old haunted church on the second floor, all by my lonesome. I had a little studio called the Other Club.
Cool.
I often travel. Well, I lie. I used to often travel. I travel a little bit. Come here to sunny Omaha, Nebraska, Fort Collins, Colorado, and catch me at Liquid Courage or Scrimshaw.
Yep.
But generally in Rhode Island, you can find me at Andrew-Milko. Maybe it's _ Milko. I don't know. There's one Andrew Milko. You will find me on Instagram.
Fair enough.
That's an easy place. And yeah, that's
cool.
about
and
it.
I'll put all that stuff in the show notes
the
anyway. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. Let's talk about next week's episode. Next week, our crew will be going on an environmental mission to the Midway Atolls to uncover the truth about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
That is depressing.
So it's a very different feel from today.
Oh, we got the good one.
Yeah. In a 2013 documentary titled Plastic Paradise, we'll discuss the insane consumption of disposable plastics and the damage these plastics have on our health and our environment. So that's going to be fun. Have you guys ever seen that or heard of it?
I have not. I've heard of the Garbage Patch,
yeah,
but
it's disgusting. I've actually already watched this one, and it's real gross.
Yeah.
Everyone, please go out, check out that documentary, Plastic Paradise, before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Netflix. So join us as we attempt to make the world a little bit cleaner, one documentary at a time. You can go out and rate and review our podcast on your favorite podcast streaming service and let us know what you think of our show. If you want to connect to our crew, look for @Talkumentary Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, or you can email us at info.talkumentary@gmail.com. On behalf of Andrew Milko, Dave Koenig, Bird, the beautiful Bird who's sitting over there quietly enjoying the show, DJ who's in the post-production booth, and the entire Talkumentary family. I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski, and I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.